Not Quite
Darkness
is a podcast that contains spoilers, opinions, and general. Listener discretion is advised.
Once more for another amazing masturbatable episode of Not Quite Darkness. My name is Keith Brooks. Here with me as always is the man shaking his head at the things I'm saying, Chad Dowdy. Chad, how you doing?
I'm good. And you're listening to Not Quite Darkness, a subsidiary of Antonio Bay Radio. And we're going to be here all night long.
I did not expect that. That's amazing. That may be the masturbatable part of it. Your ASMR, you just as good as Catwoman, I think, doing it.
Just as good as Barbeau, that's for sure.
Yeah.
She was awesome.
Yeah. And obviously, Rob's not here because we fucking hate him. But what we are here doing is we are doing another episode of Not Quite Darkness, the show where we take apart David Weiner, friend of the show's documentary, In Search of Darkness, and we were watching all of the movies. And so today, Chad, what did we watch?
We watched The Fog. Before we get into that, as Keith mentioned, David Weiner. If you missed it, you want to check out our prior episode where we actually interviewed Mr. Weiner. It was awesome. We had the director. The reason why we're doing this podcast, he was on the show. It was pretty sweet. And now we're here to talk about John Carpenter's The Fog.
I also feel that we got that reward of getting the director way too soon, way too quickly. You know what I mean? Like, I would figure we'd probably have to do 10, 15 shows. We were 3 in and we got him. So it's the rest of it's just now we just got to watch 9,000 movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because, prior to that, I said, we might get the director on the show. And you said we might get Michael Caine. So I was right. You were wrong. I was wrong. But, let's see who we get now. We might get another director of one of these 80s movies we covered. That's what I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
We'll see.
That'd be great. So tell me about The Fog, 1980, John Carpenter, Halloween Light. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, I don't know if you're aware, Keith, but it's set in Antonio Bay.
Yeah.
Because they say it 8,000 times.
All the time.
On the radio, there's signs that say it. There's banners that say it. It's pretty clear we're at Antonio Bay.
Well, the story is in Antonio Bay, but the movie, our actual present time, is on a creepy ass beach with an old man that has a bunch of kids, and that we never discuss why or never come back to it. This is just what's happening.
Well, so we're gonna come back to this a lot when I go over this. This movie is going to be more difficult to cover than some of the others because I feel like it jumps around so much it's like 5 different narratives going on at once.
Yeah.
And it's jumping around. But what I did see is that opening scene that you're talking about, the campfire ghost story, is a reshoot that they added because the movie was too short. So that is why it's there at the beginning of the movie.
That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my fucking life. How does the movie start without that? What happens if we subtract that? What's the first thing we see?
Let's see. I'm just looking at my notes. John Carpenter talking to the priest.
Yeah, that would be fine. That's a fine way to start the film. I hate that already. Go ahead.
Yeah. So as Keith said, it's a campfire story. He's telling the kids of the shipwreck that happened, and the ship was called the Elizabeth Dane. And when the fog rolls in, dead men come in with it. So basically, run from the fog.
Yeah,
that's the gist of the ghost story at the beginning. But again,
that's the gist of the movie. We're done. We're done with it. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's clearly not needed, and we find out throughout the movie what happened anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not needed, but again, it's there because of the movie was too short. They added it. And you really didn't have to get any of the other actors, back or whatever. So
yeah,
just got the old guy.
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
So then the movie starts proper, and John Carpenter himself makes a cameo. He's talking to the priest, Hal Holbrook, and I don't even remember what they're talking about. I don't know, the festival, whatever. But John Carpenter leaves, and a piece of the church the wall just falls off, and he's basically like, "Hey, look here, look, I'm showing you all the stuff. Like, you didn't even do anything to find it. Like in some of these movies, it's just like, we're gonna show you."
And it's also not like the church is decrepit anywhere else. It's just that one spot in the wall. Like, that's, even if there was a line of like, man, we really need to fix this place up, that would have been great. But no, it's just close the door, and the middle of the fucking wall just sort of falls away. I don't know.
Yeah. And then, like, John Carpenter could have even said that. Like, he has no purpose in the movie other than he's John Carpenter. He could have said fixing this place up. And the reason why the movie is too short is because they just hand everything to the characters. Then I guess they don't have to look for anything. It's just like, no, I wonder what this movie is going to be about. Well, a piece of wall falls out. So Hal Holbrook finds a journal from 1880, and it's like his great grandfather's journal. And we don't see anything more about that, but that is the story. Same story of the haunted story the guy told at the beginning, but we'll get into that. But as I mentioned too, Adrienne Barbeau is the DJ of this town, Antonio Bay, and we just hear it first, and I kind of like that idea of her being like a narrator, but then also watching over the town.
Yeah,
I like that. And then again, she interacts with people as far as being on the phone, but she doesn't really interact with anyone face to face, except like, her son.
Yeah.
But
still, it's such an iconic, like, whenever I think of DJ characters, I think of her and I think of the Warriors. Those are the two iconic ones I think of. And I think her
Wolfman Jack.
Yeah. So I think her a lot because she's Catwoman from Batman the Animated Series, and she's also in the original Swamp Thing. So I just always had a crush on her. But go ahead.
Yeah, Carpenter's wife too. At the time.
Damn, these directors and their hot ass wives that
I'm telling you, like, yeah, I'd cast her too.
Yeah.
Listen, she's super hot, and I don't know what she's hotter in, but I loved her in Cannonball Run. She was ridiculously hot in Cannonball Run.
I've never seen Cannonball Run, like, so now I have to.
She's gorgeous. She's gorgeous, but I will say in this, there's moments, especially with that voice talking, and I'm like, she might be hotter in this. So yeah, she's gorgeous though. There'll be no doubt about it. As I said, we hear her throughout the film. And then now it's like midnight in the town. And just, again, this doesn't mean anything. This almost feels like stuff they added to, but whatever. It's midnight and weird stuff is happening in the town. And it's stuff like there's a little earthquake, and then gas falls off the nozzle and just starts guzzling out. And car lights and horns go off and chairs move around. It's like, again, I guess it's setting the mood that something creepy is going to happen, but it really doesn't have anything to do with ultimately what's going on.
You're right.
It's just odd to me. But then we meet horror legend Tom Atkins. He's amazing. I love him and everything, even Halloween 3, which you love, and it's not even a Halloween movie.
3 more days to Halloween, Halloween. But it's also like, that's the thing that always stuck out to this movie about this movie to me, is that it's like the unification of Halloween 3 and 1 and 2, because you got Jamie Lee and him and that statutory ass relationship that they have. Like,
yeah, you also have one of Jamie Lee's friends from Halloween's in this as well,
and her mom. So like, it's just everybody Jamie Lee knows.
Yeah, John Carpenter's getting everybody in.
Yeah,
and don't forget about Brackett. We'll get to him.
Yeah,
Chief Brackett. It's like everybody's in it. So Tom Atkins driving down the road, and he picks up, as you mentioned, horror legend Jamie Lee Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this before. In the 80s, you can tell it's an 80s movie. Hitchhiking. There's hitchhiking. It's completely normal, and then he's drinking and driving. It's insane. It's completely normal for the 80s. Mm-hmm. That's your hero of the film. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. That's your hero. And then I'll tell you what I did like, though, is where she asks him, are you weird? Or you're not strange? Yeah, are you weird or something?
Weird?
And he's like, yes, I am. And she was like, thank
God. The last one was such a normie.
Yeah, and I kind of thought that I'm gonna get this off. I saw this a long time ago, and I'd kind of forgot a little about it. I thought it was pirates, so I was going to wear an eye patch, but then when I was watching the movie, I was like, oh yeah, it's not really pirates. So
But it
didn't
always,
feel it would work.
yeah. But I think they are, and one of the things they skip over when the embodiment of them, they are lepers. So you could have worn an
Right.
eye patch, but just because your eyes were falling out, you know what I mean? So that could have been
Right.
the thing.
So instead, I just wore the MGM shirt
Oh, that's pretty solid.
because it was released. MGM released it on Blu-ray at some point,
Okay.
so there is a link there.
Yeah. It's
But
I like that tangential, thin as the fog itself link.
well, I didn't have anything on the freaking fog for crying out loud. Although they do have an awesome shirt that I almost ordered. It's just a Deborah Hill production. That's what it says in the
that's
font.
awesome.
That's pretty dope. So I might have that for the future for
Mhm.
sure. But I remember the first time I watched this, I thought that something weird was going on because Jamie Lee Curtis was saying something like to Tom Atkins, well, I've never. And then she started talking about the other hitchhiker she was with. And he was like, I thought you said you never hitchhiked before. And she was like, well, not before today or not before this week or something. And I was like, oh, is she like lying to him or something? This is, you know, she already got caught in a lie, but again, means nothing. But, you know,
But I think it's like a good, like, I agree. That's always been weird to me. But I honestly think that some of the better moments of this movie, and I do like the movie, but I think that interplay, that dialogue that they have is so, like, Jamie Lee is playing a very different character than Laurie Strode, where Laurie Strode is I'm the good girl. This girl's like, she's probably going to steal your wallet after you have sex with her. You know what I mean? Like,
she's down for anything. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do like the flirtation they have there, you know, they've got going a little bit, but I mean, like in horror movies, a lot of times stuff like that means something.
Yeah.
It means like, you know, they've caught you in a lie. And if the audience isn't really paying attention, you don't really realize it, but that's going to come back later where she was lying the whole time, but it's fine. It didn't come back. But so they start to flirt. Then his windows blow out, you know, of the car, which is super weird. That just doesn't like happen,
Yeah.
you know, but whatever. So then we're going to be cutting around all over the place or whatever. So now we got Barbeau broadcasting from the lighthouse. And from Halloween, Chief Brackett gives her a call. He's like the weather guy, and he's telling her about a fog bank that's coming in so that she can tell her listeners. So, you know, she's talking about that. And then we're out at sea, and there is a ship that is just out there fishing, just a couple guys drunk fishing, what have you. And the fog rolls in on them. And when the fog rolls in, the ship just kind of just dies.
Yeah.
Nothing's working. And some of them are down in the bowels of the ship trying to figure out, you know, what's wrong with the ship. But one of the guy who's out on the deck, he sees this huge ship coming through the fog. It looks like, you know, a pirate ship. Basically, it's kind of what it looks like, an old-timey ship. But it's the bad guys. You know, they come out of the fog, and really they kill all three of the dudes in the boat. And it's kind of cool deaths too. I thought they were brutal. I didn't remember the first time I watched this a while ago, you know, the deaths being that brutal. It wasn't bloody, but it was like brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very like visceral. But then I also love that aspect of it. I also love, and this is a little bit ahead, but the whole, it looks like they've been underwater for years. The boat has now rusted, and it like the age and the time has come with the fog. I think that's the coolest shit in the world. That
is a super cool concept, you know, that they play with. Not quite enough, if you ask me, but they play with it a little bit.
Yeah.
But so back to Brackett and Bardo talking, and Brackett is flirting like crazy, as like he could ever get a girl like her. I mean, come on, he's Chief Brackett, for crying out loud. Now, Keith, I love this interplay between the two of them too, though, you know, as far as she's like, she likes him, but she's like, yeah, you know, it's not going to work. I love your voice. Yeah. When I say you, it's not going to work. So I kind of like that or whatever. But this fog is different from normal weather patterns in the fact that it's moving against the wind, you know, so, whoa, you know, that's creepy or whatever. Then we cut to Tom Atkins Jamie Lee, they're in bed together already. Like, and again, we are what 4 for 4 with age differential. That he is. I looked it up. He is 45, which he looks older than that, but he's 45. He's 22. Now, I don't know what ages they're playing, but it seems to be a significant age difference.
It's troublesome, to say the least. Yeah.
Yes. So
she was asking for a ride, but she wasn't asking for that type of ride. You know what I mean?
She asked for a ride, and he immediately offered her a beer as he's driving. So, so they're in bed together. And then there's like a knock at his door. And they look kind of cool and creepy. Like the fog rolls in, and you see like a silhouette at his door. And it's clearly one of the killers because they're either hitting the door with a meat hook or something, or a sword or something like that. But as Atkins goes to open the door, it's right at 1 o'clock and the fog disappears. And so no one's there. So we're kind of establishing, weird shit's going on from midnight to 1 o'clock. Yeah. So that's a fine concept. And I kind of like the idea too of, if you were to figure that out, we just have to make it till 1 o'clock. I kind of like that aspect of it too. Again, I don't feel that they really play with it at all.
A lot, no.
Because it's condensed. This movie's condensed. Like, there's not another really, the fog rolls in again and we're at it again. There's nothing to do with the 1 o'clock thing. So now it's the next day, and Barbeau's son is playing out on the beach, and he finds a piece of driftwood that has the part of the ship's name on it, the Elizabeth Dane. And, he takes it and he shows it to his mom. And this is, again, we're going to be cutting back and forth. So Tom Atkins, apparently those were his buddies out on the boat. And I can't remember, was he supposed to meet them and go out with them? Or
they were supposed to bring something back to him or something? Yeah.
There was some reason that he was like, why are they not back? So again, he goes to the docks. Jamie Lee's with him. And they're not back, so he's going to take a boat out to look for his buddies, and she's game. She's like, I can go to California anytime. Let's see what's going on or whatever. So, so they go out on the boat, and then now we're introduced to more characters that have nothing to do with anybody else. Horror legend Janet Leigh, Jamie Lee's mom. She is putting on a Antonio Bay festival with Sandy, also from Halloween. I love her from Halloween. She's awesome. Me too. But so they're putting on a festival for no reason. Whatever.
Well, I think it's isn't it the 100 years of the ship going down? Yeah,
but I mean, like, we don't really see anything with the festival. I mean, I get that. I mean, we do just a little bit, but it doesn't play into it other than the fact that I guess that's our way of telling everybody it's the 100-year anniversary or whatever.
And it seems like a lame ass festival to begin with. It's like not a lot of stuff going on there. Just
nothing's happening.
Yeah, listening to old guys talk.
People walking around with the candles, like looking at a statue or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to this when we talk about overall, but I just feel like there's too much going on in this movie, and then not enough. It is not focused, and that's the problem that I have, with this movie. So I feel like this description that we're talking about, it's not focused because it's not. Atkins finds his buddies on the boat at the same time. Janet Leigh's talking to the father from earlier, Hal Holbrook, and he is talking about the journal, and he's telling her what he's read in the journal. And his great grandfather, it was a leper colony, was wanting to settle there, as you said, and his great grandfather didn't want any of that. So they devised a plan from 12 to 1. That's where the 12 to 1 comes from, to kill the lepers and take their money. And there's 6 of them, which becomes important as well, which
becomes semi-important. I say importance and exaggeration. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then Atkins is looking for his friends. They're on the boat, and it's what you're saying. The boat looks like it's, old as can be, and Tom Atkins saw it 2 days ago. He's like, there's no way the seawater could have done this, in this amount of time. And then he starts telling his story, trying to compete with the Jaws story from the USS Indianapolis. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even remember what the story is.
I don't
'Cause was
either. Like, as you were saying that, I'm like, oh, I guess he did. But
yeah, you can't compete with that from Jaws. Come on, dude.
it's about his dad getting a gold doubloon or something like that. Like, yeah, something. I don't know.
Yeah. And then one of the dead guys falls on Jamie Lee while he's telling the story, or right after he finishes the story. So now they find, their dead friends. Then we go back to the father. He's telling the story as he's reading the book. What they did was they tricked the ship with the lighthouse or something to make it go into the rocks and just crash or whatever and down the ship. So now this town has been founded on murderers. That's what they've discovered. That's basically what the journal says. The town's been founded on murderers, and the lepers are coming back now. They're going to be in the fog, So we've got the story, which is, again, similar to what the old guy was saying at the very beginning, but now we just have some details or whatever. So now we're back to Barbeau. She's going back to the lighthouse. And if you thought Crazy Ralph's bike ride from Friday the 13th was long, you get to see her take down every single step going down to that lighthouse. It's a cool shot. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's beautiful.
I think it
We don't
pays
have to-
off later when we see the fog. I almost said the mist, but that's a very different phenomenal thing. But as we see the fog coming down the steps itself, like repeating it, I think that's the payoff for that for me. But I also, you can keep the camera on Adrienne Barbeau as long as you want. I imagine that's John Carpenter going, look at my pretty wife. Look at her. Look how pretty she is.
Possibly, but she is much harder than Crazy Ralph. So, and
to each their own.
There is several slow parts in this movie. And I feel like this is one of them because, again, she's walking down. She gets into the lighthouse. She walks up the stairs of the lighthouse. We're seeing her get the radio station ready. She's like turning everything on, getting it ready to go. And I'm like, let's get to the point here. Oh my gosh.
I fucking hate that tape she's playing. Oh my God, I hate it so much.
Yeah. At the beginning when I did the whole thing and I said, we'll be here all night. That's when you should plug in some public domain jazz music because that's about all they played at this radio station. Was like, she is like, is that really what this town is listening to? Yeah. It's the only radio station in the whole town. It is jazz music. I'd shoot myself. I can't stand jazz music, by the way. I feel like you're cultured and you'd be like, oh, I love jazz music.
I love jazz. I do love jazz.
Of course. So as she's getting the studio ready or whatever, the piece of, she has the piece of driftwood with her. Not sure why she took it with her, but it starts wetting itself. It starts leaking, I guess, all over everything. And then it catches on fire, which is kind of weird as well.
But not like just like a casual fire, like a fucking firework fire as the water from it. So it's simultaneously multiple Captain Planeteers, but it's fucking up the tape that she's listening to. And this is the part, like, there's some fine stuff in the movie before then, but this is like the part where I'm like, okay, the movie started now. Like, that's what I think of when I see this part of it. But go ahead.
Yeah, because she doesn't know everything that we know, but she knows there's a weird fog or whatever, but she doesn't know anything's going on really. But she immediately calls her son and is like, where'd you get that piece of wood? Don't leave the house. Like she is terrified all of a sudden. Like, I feel like you bring a piece of wood in and it's possible that it was wet. It touched some of the electrical stuff and it started a fire. That's not the craziest thing in the world.
At all.
But she immediately leaps to, I've got to protect my son at all costs or whatever. Like,
but I'm not going to leave here to
Yeah.
go get him. Thank God he's there with that 197-year-old babysitter I hired for him.
Exactly. I mean, the town needs jazz music, Keith. Like, what are they going to do without this jazz music? I mean, she's a single mom, business owner, because I think there's a newspaper article that she bought it. So, I mean, everything is riding on this radio station, Keith.
Yeah.
She can't leave it for her son.
I agree.
Again, it's just all over the place, this movie. So now we cut to the coroner's office, and It's Jamie Lee and Tom Atkins talking to the coroner. The dead body's right there. And they're talking about it. And Tom Atkins in the corner goes out and they talk about what you said as far as the body looks like it's been pulled out of the river from, it's been in there for a year or something.
Yeah.
And this, to me, the shot of Jamie Lee in the corner, the morgue, whatever you want to call it, is straight out of Halloween. Again,
Absolutely.
It's John Carpenter.
Yeah.
It's, Jamie Lee Curtis, but she's not looking at the body and the body starts to move in the background.
Yeah.
I mean, just like close to the end of Halloween with Michael raising up. I mean, he's copying his own stuff, which is fine, but it's straight out of Halloween. So the body gets up though, and it just falls right before it gets to Jamie Lee. She screams and they run in. I'm out. This is the craziest thing you've ever seen. This body that looks like it's, been in the ocean or whatever for a month, is clearly dead, gets up and stumbles to you. And they don't even act that too crazed about it.
There's no scene where they're trying to figure out what happened, why it did it. Nothing.
No. And even like he just holds her when she screams, which again, that might be the natural thing to do, but like there needs to be more than that for sure. Yeah. This isn't just a random person that came up and tried to attack you and then passed out. This is someone that has been dead, clearly dead, and is now walking up. So I'm going to do what I do a lot of times, Keith. If I was in this movie, I'm out now. If I'm Jamie Lee Curtis, for sure, I'm hitchhiking my way out of California. I'm not curious of what's going on. I'm out. What about you?
I honestly think you would have been out when the jazz started playing. But for me, if I was Jamie Lee Curtis and I was hitchhiking, I would have been out when Atkins tried to fuck me. That's the part I would have been done. That would have been like, sorry, what? No, I just needed a ride. And then I would be, that's when I'm out of the movie.
Yeah, maybe when I said, "Are you weird?" and he says, "Yeah, I'm definitely weird." I'd be like, "Oh, no thanks. I like the normies."
Yeah.
But literally, they, like you said, they don't do anything with this. This is the craziest thing that you've ever seen in your entire life. It's something that's never happened in the history of the world, as far as anyone knows, and they don't even talk about it. They don't even address it. It's wild. So now the fog rolls in. Again, we got 3 separate stories going on, not really linked, really. Chief Brackett calls about the fog again. But this time the fog is approaching the weather station that Brackett is at. And because Barbeau's almost got this all figured out, she's freaking out that the fog's rolling in to Chief Brackett's. And she tells him, don't answer the door or something like that. Stay away from the fog because now the power's out. And also reminiscent of Halloween with Jamie Lee hearing her friend die on the phone. Now Barbeau hears Brackett die on the phone.
I will say that I love the dichotomy between the 2 conversations they have on the phone, because I agree with you. I like the first conversation they have when they're kind of flirtatious. That's great. But then in the second conversation, I fucking hate him, because every 5 seconds he's like, little girl, listen, little honey, listen, little missy, and just calling her all these pejorative like little names, like, listen, little vagina. Like, why the fuck are you doing that, man? Yeah, so that's my thought.
Well, that's because she basically turned him down in the first call. At the end, she was like, "Oh yeah, you're the man of my dreams on the phone, but if we met in person, forget about it." So now he's just like, "Oh, she's a tease. Forget about her. I hate her. Can't stand her."
Fragile male ego. What the hell?
Yep, that's exactly right. I mean, we'd all know about that, right, Keith? So Brackett's dead now. She tries to call the sheriff, who has, like 2 scenes in this entire movie, and he disappears, which is odd.
But I love the fact she calls the sheriff over the radio, like not like the radio, but the radio. Like that's how she gets in touch with him, and she has a phone. So go ahead.
That's how she gets in touch with everyone, is through the radio, and apparently everyone listens to the radio in this town. So she's got to be doing fine.
See, a lot of people like jazz. See, it's not just me.
Or it's just cheap to get it for a movie. Maybe that's it. So as she's talking to the sheriff, the power goes out in the town. And Barbeau sees like the fog approaching the town, the place where her son is, and she's freaking out. And at first I was like, what is she even doing? Because she can clearly see that the fog is going to where her son is.
Yeah.
And she's scared of what might happen to her son. So she's trying to start the generator up. And I'm like, what is she trying to do to start the generator up? Why is she not just going to try to save her son? But I guess it's too many steps. That's why we had to show that earlier. She's like, I'm never going to make it in time. There's like 5,000 steps after rundown just to get in my car. So I guess that's what it is. But so she gets the generator started, and boom, she's on the radio, like screaming, somebody go save my son, please. Somebody go save my son. He's at whatever address. Because again, everybody listens to the radio. Tom Atkins, he's listening to the radio. So he's going to go and try to save the son. And unlike Halloween in this one, they actually do kill the babysitter. But like you said, she's 100 years old.
Yeah.
She doesn't make it out. But everybody just, again, freaks out for no reason a lot of the times. Like, I mean, the fog is rolling in and the babysitter's like, go to your room and stay there. Stay out of your room. I mean, like, don't ever come out of here or whatever. It's like, I mean, yeah, fog is like creepy, but like you know where you live? Fog's going to be kind of a normal occurrence, I would guess.
But to be fair, it is a thick ass fog, like that's coming through there. So thick, it should be called a fog. That's what it should be called. I also like her death scene because it happens. It's so interesting because it's as soon as the boy is closing the door, that's when she gets got. You know what I mean? And that timing on that is just awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it is cool because he doesn't like see exactly, everything. So that it is, like I said, I do like how she died in that, but also like how the bad guys look in the fog. When they're in the fog, they look super cool.
Awesome. Yeah. When
they're out of the fog, maybe not so much, but in the fog, I dig them a lot or whatever. So the kid's just scared, hiding in his room, and the bad guys are in the house or bad to bust through the door to get the kid. And Tom Atkins busts through the kid's window and pulls the kid out. And they jump in the car. It's Tom Atkins, Jamie Lee Curtis, and the kid now. And they blast away. They get away from the fog. Now, what I really like, this is probably my favorite part of the whole film, is Barbeau's on the radio and she's explaining where the fog is to everyone and how to stay away from it and stuff. And the music is perfect. It's like super creepy. And I think that it works really well where she's like, now it's rolling up, Highway 7, stay clear of something Church Road or something like that. I thought that was pretty cool. And then we've got, Atkins and them. And then she tells them that, it looks like it's safe if you head to the church. So Atkins, Jamie Lee head to the church. So does Janet Leigh and Sandy. They also head to the church. So finally, the exception of Barbeau, they're all together. And I didn't mention before, at one point they're like in a bar together, all the characters. They don't even talk to each other. Like they don't even know each other. It's just weird. So finally they come together at the church. And the father, Malone, Hal Holbrook, he thinks he's got it all figured out. Like, this is clearly the issue. And so this is definitely where it gets kind of weird as far as what Father Malone thinks. He's like, yeah, our ancestors did this or what have you. We did it from 12 to 1, but they have to have 6 deaths to appease them because there were 6 conspirators that, conspired to get them killed. So how do they know that there's only been 5 deaths? Because the fog has been rolling around through town.
Yeah.
You have no idea who has been killed or who hasn't been killed.
Because I even having watched the movie, I'm trying to count the deaths because I how many were on the boat? 4?
3 on the boat.
Old babysitter.
Then you've got the babysitter, and there was one more. Brackett, Chief Brackett.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's 5. But again, they don't know about Brackett.
Also,
they
it's a weird way to look at that and just guess that those are the rules. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It would be like
Exactly.
me saying, well, when the Native American spirits rise, they have to kill 1,776 people named James. Like, what?
Exactly. And they've killed already 1,002.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
like, they know everything.
Instant. I feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just wild. Like, I'm not a fan of movies when they figure stuff out that easily or whatever. So now both places are under siege as far as the church where all the characters are, and even the lighthouse where Barbeau is. So, so Hal Holbrook knows what they want on top. Yeah, he's figured this out too. He's like, oh, they also want the gold we stole from them. So he busts out that wall more, and there's a giant gold cross.
Huge fucking golden cross.
I might have missed it. Did they wanted to steal their gold? Did they take it and turn it into a cross? That's what happened, right?
That's literally what he's saying as he's handing it to them. He's like, we took this in 1774 and made a cross out of it. Here you go, I guess. Like,
exactly.
Getting those story points in as quickly as possible.
The other thing is, like, seriously, if you're going to steal gold from somebody, that's what you're going to do with it. You're going to turn it into a cross and then hide it in the wall.
Well, but I think it's because that's one of the confessions, is that the grandfather, who's the priest, says something to the effect of, they're looking for the thief and their gold, because he's talking about the other conspirators, but they don't realize I'm the thief and the gold is in the walls of this church, or something like that. And then he figures out it's the cross. It's dumb. It's dumb.
It is dumb. But again, Hal Holbrook's like, that's definitely what they want. They want me, and they want the cross. I'm going to go give it to them. And so, meanwhile, Barbeau's being attacked at the top of the lighthouse. That was pretty cool. I thought how one was coming up the ladder and one was already up there. That was kind of creepy with her. But so Hal Holbrook, they come out of the fog again. They don't look as cool because now they're out of the fog a little bit. He gives them the cross, and they kind of just blow up and disappear.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, you nailed it, dude. We just wanted our gold cross.
I think they're even confused about. They're like, seriously, this is what you fucking did to it? This is.
That's what it is. They had to get the cross and then regroup because, spoiler alert, they come back.
They're like, what do we? We're gonna go talk to our boss real quick, and we'll let you know.
So they just disappear. The fog recedes. Everyone survives. And then, which I think this is cool too. I wish it would have been like creepier and saw more fog, but Barbeau gets back on the radio and she's telling ships to, like, watch out for the fog because there's something in the fog, and you might die if you get in the fog or whatever. I thought that was cool. And I actually thought that would have been like a cool ending if it was a little better executed.
Yeah. But I do think it is a really well executed, but could have been a little bit better. Yeah, absolutely agree.
So then we, again, we cut back to Father Maloney's by himself at the church. And you're right. The dudes went back, they talked to their boss, and he was like, I don't care about this fucking cross. We need our 6th guy. What are you doing? Don't you know the rules? I got to kill 6 people.
I could see the dead pirate guy be like, you what? You took what from him? Why the fuck? We're ghosts. Why do we need gold?
How many times? 6 people. 6 people. Do I need to count them for you? We got to kill 6. And you only killed 5. Dumbasses. Go back there and get my 6th kill. And so Hal Holbrook's like wondering, why was I spared? Well, guess what? You're not. Dude shows up, slashes him, kills him, end of the movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, this movie is not terrible. I know. I kind of, whatever. It's creepy in parts. My Letterboxd review would be 2.5
let me go see
out of 5. But a lot of it is just, it's just all over the place. I almost feel like that they rushed it into production or something, because again, it was too short, and he had to go back and shoot some stuff, and then it's like 3 different stories that don't connect at all. Like if Janet Leigh would have had more to do with the church or Tom Atkins. Like if everybody was linked to the church somehow or something, it's just like they don't have any reason to be together, it kind of shows. So I was not a fan really overall of the story. I like the idea,
Mhm.
but not a fan of how it jumped around as far as
I
that goes.
I like the way that I like the idea of the concept. I hate the fact that we have a narrative device that we're using that we don't come back to. I I like the way they look in and out of the fog. I do agree that it feels a little jumbled because so much stuff is happening. And it just feels like some of the execution of that doesn't have enough time to breathe or enough time to evolve. And then some things we take too much time on. And to me, it always feels inferior to Halloween because the score feels like it's trying to do what Halloween did, but never gets it as well as Halloween does. That it doesn't. I don't know. I guess the score to me invokes more Halloween feelings than it does Seaside, if that makes any sense.
Definitely. And again, the creepiest part that I was talking about is when they're driving through the town and she's talking about,
Yeah,
which way to go. And the music there was awesome, but it
yeah,
was definitely like Halloween-esque
yeah.
music.
Yeah, and so there's some parts of it I like a lot, and then there's some parts where I just wish it was. Again, to me, the movie doesn't really kick off until that board blows up, and it's not just because of the spectacle, but it's just because it feels like it just drags before we get there.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's really pulling me into these characters. And it feels almost like he's trying to do this. Look at all these different characters that have such intricate lives, and now we're going to see them as they explode together. But there's nothing so intricate about Janet Leigh that makes me super interested in a character other than the stunt casting aspect of it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you would have given her some other, because there is something innately interesting about Adrienne Barbeau and her son being separated right now. There's something interesting about this old guy fucking this young hitchhiker for some fucking reason. She's cool with it. Like all of that has some compelling aspect to it, and they're each having their own sort of investigation. Janet Leigh doesn't, but yet that's our third thing. Why? So I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it.
Now, did you see the remake of The Fog with Tom Welling?
I did, but it's been so long since I've seen it. I remember not liking it.
Same. That's all I remember is that
Yeah,
I didn't like it.
yeah, that's all.
So I couldn't even tell you if it was like a similar as story. I mean, I know it's a fog, it's a town or whatever, but
Yeah.
I really don't remember anything about it. But I know I didn't like it, but I just feel like they probably would have fixed a little bit of the story problems in this, but maybe
I would
not.
imagine, yeah. I don't know, and I like Superman. Superman's good and stuff. I found out that there are 3 lakes in the world that this I'm going to say can actually happen from, not really actually happen, but kind of happen. So there's one case in Cameroon of a place called Lake Nyos, and it has something called a limnic mist or a limnic eruption mist that comes from it. And it's this gaseous magma that turns into gas that swipes through as a fog and comes through and just kills everything in its path. And so there was a slaughter that happened in like the 1970s when it had one of those eruptions and just wiped out an entire town, all of the livestock, and it was just this mist coming through.
Wow.
Isn't that fucking terrifying? And so there's 3 lakes in the world that have the potential to do that. We've solved it for 2 of those, Lake Nyos being one, and the third one is too big for us to handle because it's just a ginormous lake. So we haven't figured out a way to keep that from happening there. It just hasn't happened in a long time. Isn't that fucking insane?
That is insane. And I feel like based on these horror movies that we watch, How You Never Leave, I wouldn't be surprised if you're living near that lake by the next time we record.
Absolutely.
You never run away from something scary.
I was out in like
the rates are pretty good.
Oh, that's true. I was out in 15 minutes on this one because some guy was putting the moves on me. So, but that brings me to, okay, so if I was redoing this, if I was redoing The Fog for today, I would do it as a television show, as like a mini series, limited series event, thus giving all of those stories a little bit of time to breathe, and then also finding ways to interconnect them a little bit more, work on the investigation. And so I have 3 people that I have cast in my version. I don't have all of them because I always forget to do that.
I just have 3 as well.
So I would have my Adrienne Barbeau character would be Julie Bowen, but I would have her be going to work with a broken leg. So she's in a giant fucking cast, thus explaining why she's trapped there. She can't really get to her son, all that stuff. For my Tom Atkins character, I would have Sterling K. Brown, and I would still have him have an inappropriate relationship with a younger girl. I would keep it just so like there's all this seedy stuff going on in the town. We have a lot more drama. And then for my priest, I would have Liev Schreiber.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. And so that would be my casting for like a 6 to 8 episode series of The Fog.
So I didn't do a 1-page synopsis or anything like you did, but
also I would have The Fog give people leprosy when they're caught in it, and I would kill a shit ton more.
Perfect.
People.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. And then there'd have to be like what, 58 conspirators then, if you're going to kill a shit ton of people?
I would say fuck that conspirators thing. I'm just killing everyone. That's just
the town was founded by 58 different people, so that's how you get that number, Keith. Jeez Louise. So Barbeau, I would cast I cast her last episode, but it's because I feel like it's perfect. Scarlett Johansson is Barbeau just because she has the sultry voice.
That voice would be perfect.
Barbeau has. She's gorgeous, just like Barbeau. I think she'd be perfect in that role. As far as the Tom Atkins character, I guess Winston Duke. He's like badass. He'd be super cool. And then I cast Jamie Lee's character, not age inappropriate, but feisty. Mackenzie Davis is who I cast as the Jamie Lee. I feel like, again, I would make her more feisty, have her more to do. Jamie Lee Curtis is really just in this movie. She doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But if it was Mackenzie Davis would be getting shit done. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. So, okay. My letterbox for it was, I think, 3.5 stars. Do you feel it is an important inclusion in this? It's a must-see for horror fans?
I don't think so. I mean, again, I would say if you are a John Carpenter guy, definitely check it out. It's the John Carpenter music. It's got a lot of John Carpenter players in this. So it has horror legends in it as far as that goes. But if we're putting it up in the pantheon of 80s horror films, I don't even know when I would think of this one if I was listing them all, because it's just
It's interesting to see Carpenter do a straight up ghost story, because that's what this is. But it is lower on, and it's not that I don't like it. I just don't like it as much as I like Halloween. That's always going to be the comparison, because Halloween is such an iconic film. Edgar Allan Poe wrote The Raven, and I'm sure he also wrote something like The Canary, but The Raven's the big one that we remember. You know what I mean? So that's sort of the thing for me. What are we watching next time?
So next is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Oh my God, big guns coming out. Okay. And also problematic directions and stuff like that. But that's fine. Totally fine. We're going to watch that. Well, I can't wait. So Chad, in the meantime, where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter, NQC Podcast. Also on Instagram, NQC Podcast. Come and say hi.
I don't like that. I don't like it as much as I thought I would. And if you're looking for me, you can find me somewhere in the not quite darkness. Michael K.
Peace.